Hello everybody, welcome to The Beat, a news and informative talk program brought to you by the Center for Community Media here at Worcester State University. I'm RJ Sheedy, and today on the program we're welcoming on William Scannell, the founder of Hopes Forever. William, how you doing today?
Good, RJ. How are you?
I'm good. Do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is William Scannell. I'm actually an attorney from Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and I started a foundation called hopesforever.org. It's to raise awareness of substance use disorder and the stigma associated with it, because we're today not getting enough help for the people that need it.
Totally. And what led you to start this?
Well, unfortunately, it's a sad story. My son was a student here at Worcester State University. He was sober early in his life. He was sober from 16 to 18, and he got a full academic scholarship here at Worcester State. He started in August of 2014. And we got off to college, and like a lot of kids in college, that first week he went a little crazy, started drinking and smoking pot. And I wouldn't say I was completely shocked. I was hoping he wouldn't do that, but what I didn't know is that pretty shortly thereafter he found opiates, and in his case he found heroin. And heroin's pretty readily available here in Worcester, and we didn't even know this until December of 2014, but he'd already developed a pretty substantial heroin habit, had overdosed for the first time at St. Vincent's Hospital, at which point we started trying to get him treatment, help, whatever he needed, brought him home from Christmas break that year, and he got right back into treatment, and things seemed to be improving. And we made a plan with him. I even drove him out here to the Worcester area to find meetings to go to, and he was going to work with a counselor here at WSU. He was going to go to meetings. He was going to come home more on the weekends to try to, use his friends as strength and support too. But he didn't. And basically, in the course of a year, put him in treatment 2 other times. But on April 20th, 2016, my son overdosed and died right down the street from his college, right at the Big Y supermarket at the bottom of the hill. And from the minute he died, his mother and I vowed to try to raise awareness. Today everybody calls it addiction because we've been trained as a society to call it that, but it's really substance use disorder. And we've been trying to raise awareness, since we first got the news.
Was it hard for you to deal with this with your son? Was it hard for you to allow him to go get help and stuff? Was it hard for you to watch him go through this?
Not me particularly. I have a lot of it in my family, so I'm very used to it. And Emmett had a problem in high school. He was using drugs on a daily basis, but it was nothing really, what people would term hard drugs. He wasn't using heroin or cocaine or pills in high school, but he was smoking pot every day, used a couple little things here and there, drinking a lot. And he got into treatment and hated it the first 6 months, but when he gave himself over to it, what happened was he completely changed. He was always a good student, but he was kind of an outsider and liked biking and stuff like that. And after he got sober, he met a girl, and he had the all-American dream high school years, like National Honor Society at a 4.27 GPA. He went to prom, he went to semiformals, he joined clubs, he did everything. He was completely different, and he was so excited to come off to college. And when he came here, it just, went to that next level. And sadly to say, there's just not enough help, support, or treatment for them.
So let's talk about Hopes Forever. You traveled across high schools and colleges across the country. What is the message you're trying to deliver to these students that you speak to?
Well, to be honest, initially, this is crazy, but 6 days after my son died, I spoke at an opiate awareness rally at Bridgewater State College. I'm from Bridgewater. I honestly did it just to see if I could get through my eulogy. And at the time, it was very much about Emmett and about substance use disorder and how we, calling it the wrong term is very detrimental. See, we as a society call them drug addicts or drug abusers. We put a negative slant on all the words they use, so the general public perceives it in a negative way. But what we did since then, what's changed, is it's no longer so much about Emmett. In the beginning, it was cathartic. It helped me feel better to talk about him and try to share his story, which helped people. But today, I do it much different. I do a PowerPoint presentation. I don't come into high school. I do it in middle schools too now. Middle schools, high schools, and colleges. I don't come in and give a rah-rah speech about don't do drugs. I come in and explain to you the effects that certain drugs have on your brain, the dopamine levels, and things like that, and then encourage them to make their own decisions. And I use Emmett's story and another young lady named Emily, who, if we have time, I'll tell you about her story.
Do you want to tell me about her now?
Yeah, I would. I think it's really important. See, today, the big problem today isn't heroin, it's fentanyl, and it's synthetic drugs that are mostly manufactured overseas or in Mexico and brought into our country. Emily was 15 years old. She's from East Bridgewater, the next town over to me. Her mom and her lived in Florida, and they moved back in the 8th grade. When she got into 9th grade, she was having some, her sexual orientation issues, and she was feeling like an outsider. She couldn't fit in. She met a new group of friends, and she had a girl sleep over about 6 days before her 15th birthday. Now, Emily's a good kid. She'd never drank. She'd never done drugs. This girl encouraged her. They snuck out to go to a party down the street at a Little League field. Her mom, being a good parent, realized after about 45 minutes she was gone and went down and retrieved them. She brought him home, read him the riot act, and they went to bed. About 20 minutes later, they heard Emily thrashing and screaming for her mother, and she was in unbearable pain. They rushed her to Brockton Hospital. They med-flighted her to Mass General Hospital, and she slipped into a coma. She celebrated her 15th birthday in Mass General, and she died 6 days later. She was brain dead. She took one pill the first time she ever took a drug, as it was a synthetic, promised to be like a great high, like an acid high. $5 she bought it for, and she was dead. That's the kind of stuff we're dealing with today, that people have to understand the dangers of it. Sometimes you only get one shot. Like Emmett wasn't this guy that did this for a long period of time. Emmett's total period of use was 18 months, 3 months of which he was sober, and he was dead. Emily was dead in one day. So that's that kind of stuff that you need to educate, not only our young people like yourself, but the general public about parents needing to talk to their kids and things of that nature. That we've looked at, drug addiction negatively because our government has, ingrained in us this idea of the war on drugs, that we can win the war. We can't win the war. It's not a war. It's a health issue. Substance use disorder is a disease, and we have to treat it as such, and we don't at present.
You so bravely go out and speak honestly about this. Why is it sometimes difficult in your mind to have an honest conversation about substance abuse in the way you do?
Because people aren't used to it. I'll be honest, what I really do. I speak in middle schools, high schools, and colleges for this reason. In 15 years or 20 years, you will be the voting majority. I'm not going to change many people over the age of 40 or 50's mind because they believe they're just bad people. We'll put them in jail and the problem will go away. It doesn't go away. We have more people in jail than ever in U.S. history. We have the highest spending ever in the war on drugs. We spend $31.1 billion a year, and we're losing. And we have the most overdoses ever in recorded history. So obviously it's not working. So what do we need to do? We need to change the conversation. We have to make people understand that it's a disease. See, 20 years from now, every single one of you is going to know someone that died of an overdose. It's not going to be like it was when I was growing up, and that's the difference.
So before I came down here today, I had a chance to look at some of your PowerPoint slides from your school presentations, and I saw a few slides in your presentation that discuss what an addiction is and what a substance use disorder is. Are those two exactly the same?
They are exactly the same, and that's one of the early things I do in my presentation. I put two definitions up on a giant screen, and I have them read them. And it's a very wordy definition of a disease, but it's basically a brain disease. And what it comes down to is they are exactly the same, except how many people call it substance use disorder and how many people call it addiction.
Your slideshow was the first time I saw substance use disorder phrased like that.
Right. And here's the sad part. HopesForever.org at present is a Facebook group with about 13,700 members. And I was just this past weekend working with Emily's mom. We're working on the website. And it's focused about stigma, because the problem is we can't get the general public to understand that it is substance use disorder because it's not out there. Like, there's 1,000 Facebook groups, for example, about recovery, addiction, whatever. Even the ones that know that it's substance use disorder and not addiction won't change their name because they got t-shirts printed up or they have their business cards already printed up. Instead of just understanding, until we convince the general public to look at it as a medical model, nothing's going to change. That's the reality. Until the stigma changes, we won't get enough funding from our politicians. We won't get insurance companies to properly cover it. You know, taking someone who has, you know, heroin as their primary drug of choice and putting them in a detox for 7 days does nothing except put them at more at risk. It doesn't help them at all. They need to be in long-term treatment programs, and then frankly, they don't exist.
The evidence is really piling up that opiates are more popular than ever. Their use is high. I wish I brought your graph with me. The graph goes like that, it just goes up. Do you think that there are enough preventative measures to help people get off these dangerously addictive substances? Because clearly a week-long treatment isn't working. Throwing people in jail isn't helping the situation.
No, part of the presentation I do with the schools is there's a doctor from Western Massachusetts. Her name's Ruth Pote. Now, she has many YouTube videos, which she's a doctor. They're very lengthy, 75 to 90 minutes. But what I do is I take like 1.5 minute snippets from it, and I use them, and then I use them as talking points and explain it. When you have any kind of substance use disorder that involves crystal meth, opiates, or cocaine, you need, due to the damage you do to your brain, you need long-term treatment. And evidence and the studies show that you need treatment in the realm of somewhere between 6 and 12 months minimum for your brain to regenerate to the point where you have a decent chance of staying sober. And even then, it's not a perfect world. It's not a perfect model. People relapse. It's going to happen. One of the graphs also talks about, why do we treat this any different than we do other chronic health diseases? Why do we treat it different than epilepsy or diabetes or heart problems? Stigma. That's why. And I'll give you a really quick one. Just stigma one. All right. A 300-pound man sits in a Burger King restaurant. He's got 3 double Whoppers with cheese in front of him, and he's sitting there and he's eating and he has a heart attack and he falls out of the booth onto the floor. The EMTs come, they bring him, they put him in there, they take him to the hospital, they rush him to the emergency room, they treat him, they stabilize him, they take him upstairs. He can have heart surgery, get a catheterization if he needs it to survive. Then he's given follow-up treatment and medicine and everything. We can do everything we can to save his life. Now, a 19-year-old girl either snorts a drug or injects a drug in the bathroom and she overdoses and she's technically dead on the floor. We call the ambulance. The same thing happens, except what happens? They come, they Narcan her, they bring her back to life, they take her to the hospital, they put her in an emergency room and sit her on a bed for 4 hours. That's it. That's all they do, because that's what they have to do pursuant to law, is stabilize them and make sure that when the Narcan wears off, she doesn't slip back, in or die.
4 hours?
4 hours. It's a 4-hour hold. That's the law. Some hospitals have recovery coaches, but virtually none in the state of Massachusetts. That's all they do. And when she gets up and they hand her a little piece of paper and they say, if you want to do something about your problem, here's some numbers, call them. Now, why would we do that to someone with diabetes or epilepsy or any disease? No, of course not. And even in hospitals, sometimes a doctor or a nurse will say, get that junkie out of this room. We need it for somebody that needs it. If doctors and nurses can't see it as a health condition and are influenced by stigma, that's how big our fight is. Like, that's how much we have to change the perception of the world. It's like the AIDS crisis. We're in about 1985 or 1990 right now. We got about 20 years to go. That's why I start talking to younger people like yourself, because you are the future. You're going to help change the world,
So you have been on national television, on CBS. Clearly, politically, there's a huge disconnect about what needs to happen and what's happening. Have you yourself yet had the opportunity to come face-to-face with a lawmaker and say, this is what's happening, this is what I think? And if you have, what has that conversation been like?
I have. I went to the CARA event in Washington, D.C. last year. I was there for 3 or 4 days. I went to various senators and congressmen's offices. I've spoken to 2 or 3 of the Massachusetts delegation, and frankly, the Massachusetts delegation, which is Democratic, is very supportive, but the country as a whole, other than the states that are really hard hit, say like maybe Iowa and West Virginia, they don't get the support. I mean, the reality is so many people still see, drug addiction as those people did it to themselves. Like, we're not going to help them because they did it to themselves. They could just stop if they wanted to, but That's just not true. I mean, again, it's no different than chronic heart disease or epilepsy or diabetes. They all have the same rates of relapse, actually, or failure to get better, if you want to term it that. But we don't give up on them. You know, if somebody comes in and they're not balancing their insulin correctly, a doctor will give them give them the medicine, even if they can't afford it. Needles, help them, give them strips, teach them how to do it. But with, substance use disorder, people can't even understand it. I mean, if you want to see how bad it really is, just go out on the open internet, on any message board, and post something about how you think addiction's a disease and they have a choice, and you'll be attacked by, scores of people just saying, no, they're scumbags, and they do it to themselves. That's not the case. The reality is they're just like you and I. You can't even tell. Like, can you tell what somebody that has substance use disorder looks like? I can't. I mean, I know what it's like personally, but I can't look at people and, tell. It's not a magic ball.
So it sounds a lot like stigma is the reason why we can't get people with SUDs the treatment, help, and support they need. Is there any other reasons why they're not getting the support they need, in your mind?
Well, I always believe that stigma is the key, because that's what's going to open the doors to finance. Treatment centers aren't going to get built without money. Money isn't going to come without trying to get something either through the private sector or the government. Coming up on May 23rd, there's a very big meeting. It's sponsored by David Herzog. He's Professor Emeritus of Harvard Medical School. It's called Moving Beyond Stigma. And what it is, it's bringing community leaders and business leaders together in Boston. It's at the Back Bay Event Center. It's a full-day event. He invited me to go. And it's looking at how we can work together in the business community and the private sector to try to help, even if government isn't going to. Because, last year we lost well over 53,000 nationally. This year we're going to break 55,000 nationally. And to bring it closer to home, we lost 1,400 in 2014. We lost almost 1,600 in 2015, and we're going to lose 2,000 in 2016 by the time the counting's done. That's in Massachusetts. It went from 1,400 to 2,000 in 2 years, and we're not doing anything about it. It's sad. It's sad that even on the state level, they say they want to help, and I understand the financial constraints of government, but this is a disease where people die at the age of 18 to 29 is the age group that gets hit the hardest. They haven't even had a chance to live, and they're already dying.
You really are working really hard to make a lot of changes in the world. Is there anything else you want to add to this before we wrap things up? Actually, the thing, one of the final points I do when I do my presentation is to try to make people understand the way we're going to change this is through discussion, dialogue. How many people are going to see this interview? Not millions, that's clear. So what we need to do is always talk about it. Like after this interview, I'm going to be meeting with some of the nursing students here at Worcester State to try to talk them into starting like a little group to maybe help people, to be supportive. If you see someone down on the floor, you can get Narcan trained for free. I'm Narcan trained. I carry Narcan everywhere I go because I don't know when I'm going to come across someone who's in an overdose. Instead of just standing there and taking pictures with their phone, help them, support them, and have the conversations not only with your friends, which is really important, but also with your family, with your parents, your uncles and aunts, to help them better understand this is a disease. The biggest thing that people don't understand is this is a time bomb, that this is going to be the biggest health crisis of your generation. It's going to be financially so demanding on our country, it's going to cause you to pay more taxes. So it's in your best interest to try to help these people, because what's the alternative? More people get substance use disorder in the next generation, and it gets worse and worse. Again, like the AIDS crisis, it took 25, almost 30 years before the LGBTQ community went from having no rights and not even being acknowledged to having the right to get married. Why do we have to wait 30 years when, we're losing 55,000 people a year? Somebody put a great statistic out in one of the groups the other day. In the last 3 years, we've lost more people
to an overdose than we lost in World War I and World War II combined. And we're doing nothing about it. It hasn't even been declared a national health crisis. At the height of the AIDS crisis in 1995, I believe we lost 42,000 people to AIDS. It was declared a national health emergency. Everybody got involved, everybody worked together. We're losing 55,000 and they're not even declaring it a health emergency. That's the problem. People need to scream and demand, treatment, equal treatment.
I agree. William, thank you so much for joining us here today on The Beat. And thank you at home for taking a look at us today. I hope that you've watched this interview and really thought about what we've had to say here today. Reporting for The Beat, I'm R.J. Sheedy. So long, everybody.